So I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, like the ethos of that video, about charging the value and what you're discussing in that video.
You know, so depending on where you live, obviously, and I don't like to use the word obviously, but in this sense, where you live demographically, the cost of living is different than someone who lives in another area of town. Would you agree?
For sure. Yeah.
And so a lot of times we base value on where we live. Okay, if you live in a lower income area, the value of things probably aren't that expensive, you know. And if you live in a higher end area, it's more prestigious and people look at it. There's a psychological, like, oh, because it's in this part of town, it's got to cost more, because the cost of living and the cost of doing business is going to be higher. That's just a blanket across the board. When you see people who maybe they're in the barbershop and they're charging, you know, $20 or I don't know, 18 pound. Is it pound in the UK?
Pounds, yeah.
Yeah, pounds. So you know, you 18 pound, and then when you go to somebody's house, you might increase it by 30 pound, you know, or for someone in Pennsylvania at a $25 price point, they may charge $50. To me, I think that's very low. I think that's a very, very, very low number for that convenience when you're going into someone's house. And the reason why we picked that video to really highlight was because at that particular time, there was a lot of commercials on TV. Apple was taking pictures with the new portrait phone technology, with the new portrait capability in the technology of their phone in barbershops, right? The whole commercial was about a barbershop. And then you saw some of the cellular companies that were using barbershop as the catalyst to promote their technology with their phones. So you kept seeing barbershop. And then a barber who happens to be a guy who cuts several celebrities, he goes in and he's cutting Diddy's hair, and while he's cutting them, you know, Diddy's saying, hey, you know, barbering is the culture. You know, barbers create the culture. You know, if your barber ain't getting $1,000 for a haircut, I think that was a number he said, for a house call, you know, then it, you know, he was just referencing that. And I was teaching a class, and I was teaching about a product, and I was talking about how when we use product, we create the culture. As professionals, if we begin to change the trend of a hairstyle and we put it on a David Beckham, everyone wants a David Beckham haircut. If you create a look on a celebrity, everybody wants that particular haircut. You know, doesn't matter what demographic you are, doesn't matter what race or your background. When you see a professional that you admire, that looks like you, that you come from them same backgrounds, or you have the same, so you admire to be like that person. As soon as you see that, you want to do it. In the history books for barbering, you know, the kings would set the trends, right? So a king would wear a beard because that represented them. And then when they would lose in war because they were grabbing their beards, then the king said, we're removing beards, right?
Yep, absolutely.
The kings would create the culture, right? And that's what people would do. Now our modern day kings are our celebrities. And so who creates those looks for these celebrities? When Kanye West gets a new wild style, people do it. When Chris Brown gets a new wild hair color and style, people do it. You know, and so that becomes the trend, and we create that culture. You know, we are the subculture to the culture, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and because we're at the forefront, we need to be recognized for that. We're not just hair groomers and hair specialists. We are fashion consultants. We are image consultants. You know, we are creating the trends for these professionals where they're making multi-million-dollar deals. And I remember when I was cutting the Philadelphia Eagles football team, when I was going to their house, I would cut a 5-person minimum. I'm not cutting one person. If I'm going to leave my home to come and service someone, I need a 5-person minimum at a premium price, you know, and because there's the cost of not just if I'm bringing my own little chair, I have my own little station, I have my own little light, you know, I was providing a service in the convenience of your home, and I needed a 5-person minimum. Not only the cost of travel, the cost, you know, I've been cutting for 28 years. I have a professional instructor's license. That license has value. those years have value. You know, you just coming out of school, you shouldn't be charging the same price I'm charging. My
Yeah.
experience supersedes your experience. There's a value associated with that experience. I hope.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You hit all the points of that video right there. I'm like, wow, that is amazing. And actually, did you know Facebook used last year a barber to advertise Facebook campaigns and advertise on Facebook using a barber on their imagery on billboards throughout London, on the tube and all of that. So in London, there was this campaign, and there was a guy that I had on a few weeks ago on the show, and they used him on lots of billboards to say this guy kind of like he's created his business through advertising on Facebook, and it was a barber. And it's incredible. I don't know what the standards are in the US, but in the UK, barbering is one of the lowest paid industries comparatively. So when you think of it, how low paid we are and how yet important we are to culture and society, it's incredible. And it's really important for barbers to actually, I think, to know that, to have self-worth and then project that self-worth back into the marketplace, I think.
I think you're spot on, and I think that your idea of what it should be, you have to remember, going back into history, the barbers served the royalty, right? We were recognized, you know, Barber Marmaille or Marmot, however you would pronounce it. Different people pronounce it differently, but there's a statue of him that was engraved in his image as the barber who served the king. The only barber. We have the oldest professional, recognizable profession with a symbol in the world. You know, it's recognized regardless of your language. You can go to any country, recognize a barber pole, and know what that profession is. And whether you speak the language or not, you can walk in and just sign language and say, hey, you know, I cut hair too. You know, people are like, you know, it's like a brotherhood. We're connected. We're bonded by what we do. And, you know, we have to get back to that. And a lot of it has been lost because we have devalued ourselves. We have stepped away from some of our historic truths. You know, when you go to a medical practitioner, their jargon, their attitude, the sanitary conditions, the behaviors, just the atmosphere itself is completely opposite of our business. You know, you have barbers who smoke in the shop that don't wash their hands and it smells like smoke. You know, I have no problem with tattoos. I love the fact that we are in a creative industry, but a lot of times that doesn't give us the best overall image, you know? And so there are things like that that kind of hold us back. And listen, I love tattoos. I'm an artist. I love art. But there's a way to go about it and continue to have a high level or a high standard in how we're viewed. But it's more about what we are offering, what we're creating. And when someone comes in, if you can't speak a certain way, and what I mean by that, instead of calling it a haircut, right? It's a grooming service. It just sounds more expensive, right? It is preventative maintenance. It sounds more expensive. So it's things like that that really separate you from the guy who's just a hair cutter, you know. And even some of the barbers in our profession, you'll hear them say, well, I'm a barber, you know, and they say it almost sort of in condemnation to themselves, like, well, I'm just a barber, or, you know, I'm a barber, you know. And I get it. Our industry is also an industry of second chances. You know, we have ex-drug addicts, you know, drug dealers, failed ones at that, you know, and some of those people have become, you know, part of our profession. And a lot of times with that, there's that lack of professionalism and understanding that this is a business that we are in, and we need to respect it as a business and a profession.
Actually, I want to touch on what you just said there in a second. I'll go back and add to something that you said because I think it's quite cool. For those viewers that are watching, if they didn't know, so barbers actually, obviously in the UK, being such an old tradition, were surgeons back in the day. And it was originally red and white. The blue on the pole was only added by the Americans later on, because the red and the white was the blood over the white bandages. It's really cool. The history of our profession is incredible, and I think if barbers, especially younger barbers coming into the industry, and even barbers that have been around for a while that don't know it, when they research it, educate themselves in this, I think they'll respect what they do a little bit more than maybe the way they see it now.